I'm Rufus Griscom.
And I'm Caleb Bissinger.
And this is The Next Big Idea. Today, the emerging science of why we click. You know that feeling when you're totally in sync with someone?
Maybe you finish each other's sentences.
Yeah, you're picking up
what they're putting down.
Scientists have a name for that feeling. They call it interpersonal synchrony.
Turns out we subconsciously mimic other people's movements, postures, facial expressions, and gestures.
We even sync involuntary functions like heart rate, blood pressure, brain waves, pupil dilation, and hormonal activity.
And why do we do that? We do that because when we embody and internalize one another, we're able to get a read on their thoughts and their feelings.
That's journalist Kate Murphy, author of the forthcoming book, Why We Click. And she tells our colleague Panio Giannopoulos in today's episode that interpersonal synchrony, syncing for short, is our superpower.
It's really the root of empathy. It's how we connect.
But there's a catch.
The same instinct that helps you click with a new friend
can also pull you into someone else's anxiety, their anger, their panic.
Sometimes they're sucking you into places you really don't want to go.
That's all coming up after the break. Today's episode of The Next Big Idea is sponsored by Shopify. Shopify gives you everything you need to sell online and in person. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/NBI.
Kate, welcome to The Next Big Idea.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
So for listeners new to the concept, what is interpersonal synchrony in simple terms?
Interpersonal synchrony is the magical, yet now scientifically documented tendency of human beings to fall into rhythm with one another. And what I mean by that is when you bring two or more people together in a room, not only will they start to mimic one another's gestures and postures and facial expressions, they will also start to sync up their heart rate and their respiration and their hormonal activity. And why do we do that? We do that because when we embody and internalize one another, we're able to get a read on their thoughts and their feelings. It's kind of like our superpower. It's really the root of empathy. It's how we connect.
You open up the book with this great anecdote about two women. There's Joan and there's Jen. And so Joan lights up a room and then Jen kind of subtly drags it down. And so how does that work with, like, what is it about one person that picks us up and the other person that brings us down?
Well, it turns out that we actually do emit vibes. And those vibes are related to things like our respiration and our heart rate, and also the neural patterns that are our brain waves. I use the analogy in the book that we're all kind of like these walking symphony orchestras with all these different instruments playing at different frequencies. And so when you encounter another person, they may really appreciate the tune, the melody, the tempo, and sync up. Other people might detect a few instruments and maybe hum a few bars with you, but then they get off. And other people will be so distracted by their own internal rhythm that they will just be oblivious. They will not sync up with you at all. And then other people will be playing a tune that's like totally discordant. So you really will not get along. So that's really the vibe that you're either syncing with or not syncing with.
It kind of lends credence to that feeling, you know, when you meet someone and you instantly take a liking to them, or other people are like, I don't really like this guy. So there's something there. It's not just, you know, there's always that vague term of intuition, but it turns out that there's sort of like biological reasons behind this intuition.
Absolutely. And evolutionarily, it makes sense because being able to read someone immediately like that, you cannot pick up all the information that's coming from another person. It would be too much of a cognitive drain. So it's a way we get a read of friend or foe really quickly. And it happens in less than 30 seconds. And it really, Maya Angelou was right. People will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that feel is what we get in those first 30 seconds. And then we come up with reasons afterwards of why we did or did not like that person, but a lot of it is based on that initial reaction.
This brings us naturally to the question of sort of love at first sight or romantic attraction. You said that, it takes 30 seconds or less than 30 seconds for both men and women to decide whether they're interested in another person, either romantically or otherwise. If that's true, why are reality dating shows an hour long? Couldn't we just knock those out in a minute?
Pretty much. But, then there's no tension, there's no drama. And of course, we all get in our own way. Because we don't pay attention to those feelings. And there are a lot of other things in modern life that really affect those primal feelings that don't really affect the primal feelings, but make us ignore them. And also, I talk about in the book speed dating. They've done so many speed dating experiments now. Who knew that was a whole area of scientific research, not only speed dating, but speed networking. And they brought people together and they did find, indeed, it happened in less than 30 seconds. And the people that said they wanted to see each other again and said they got a good feeling about somebody were the people that synced up on these various subconscious levels. So, it's really fascinating. But I think all of us on some level are so familiar with that. When you've met someone, you kind of know. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they do a lot of the hiring decisions within their company. And she was telling me that when someone comes into her office for an interview, she said, it's just immediate. She's like sitting there thinking, okay, what is the proper and polite amount of time that I have to wait before I can say, okay, this isn't going to work. And people who have done online dating, that they feel like they might have made a connection with someone online, but they know that feeling when they meet them face to face. It's that immediate, like, whoa, this isn't going to work.
The whole chapter about speed dating is fascinating, both the history of speed dating, which I knew nothing about, and then just how heavily it's been researched around this area. And one thing that I found really fascinating was that mutual attraction isn't so much a matter of arousal as the ability of two people to put each other in a similar physiological state, which the couple together interpret as pleasurable. On one hand, it sounds very sort of bloodless and scientific. On the other hand, you're kind of coming into this together, right? It's a shared state. You're like, oh, we both feel really good. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's really true because it doesn't mean that you are only going to like someone who's like you. It's not that at all. It's whatever you bring to, what are the vibrations, and it's all these different levels that, again, science hasn't totally figured out. They've only measured certain things like hormonal level and pupil dilation. It's amazing to me. Who knew that we were doing this, that we're just like totally matching up like this? I find it absolutely fascinating that, my heart rate is matching your heart rate and my respiration is matching your respiration and all of these things. And also when there's that moment of connection, our brains, our neural patterns actually syncing up. And I've actually watched it where it just blows my mind. But when you were talking, I'm sorry, I've gotten off the topic, but when you're talking about people bringing each other into a pleasurable state, we've all known couples where we thought, whoa, I never would put those two together. And also friendships. Yeah. Like I have friends where there's like, no way I would have consciously thought this person's going to be my friend. Or people that I've dated, never thought that would be, certainly wouldn't have picked it if I looked online, swipe left immediately. But there's some alchemy between their vibrations and my vibrations that makes beautiful music. And it doesn't have to necessarily be exactly the same. And in fact, you don't really want it to be. The best couples are the ones that really balance each other out and bring each other to that stable, homeostatic, beautiful, comfortable groove.
The good version of this is you meet someone and you click, right, on all these levels. What are some signs that someone's pulling you into their emotional vortex, for lack of a better term, that your physiology is syncing with theirs in ways you might not want? You're sort of being overrun by their biology.
Well, the thing that we need to remember is that we do have an instinct to sync with everyone because that's how we get our read. It's like you're a radio tuner and you're going up and down, and you're landing on different stations. You're getting static from some people. Some people you're getting the tune. Maybe you don't like it, but you want to get a read first. And that read is that part where you're kind of swept up in somebody else's psychosocial muck, for a lack of a better term. This is a good example. I was out to lunch with somebody. I was on a speaking engagement, and they had asked me out to lunch after the engagement was over. It was at a large university. And so I was sitting with this dean, and he was really very nervous. He was just a high-strung person. And I felt myself, it was a really uncomfortable lunch, and
Right.
I was rising to his level. And so I was really feeling myself getting sucked into it. But because of this research I've done, I really was able to put this into service where I thought, okay, I am syncing with him and it doesn't feel good. And so just to really take some deep breaths, even I slowed down the rate of my speech. And I sat back, so I crossed my legs the other direction. I really relaxed my shoulders. I really interrupted that synchrony. And it changed the whole rhythm of the encounter. And he started to sync to me, and he started to calm down. So you can see how these dynamics are at play all the time. I can't think of interactions with other people the same way. I mean, it's just because I see people who are sort of high on that arousal level, and I kind of feel myself going up and try and pull myself back. And sometimes you want to. Sometimes you really get excited with the other person and it makes you happy, but sometimes they're sucking you into places you really don't want to go.
We've been talking about one-on-one relationships and syncing. When we move into group situations, right? You talk at length about that in the book about, you have groups like you have rowing, whatever they're called, crews. When people row
right.
about, right? Rowing about rockets, you've got soldiers marching in step. I guess you have dance routines, right? Synchronized movement, we all know this, right? It fuses people together, it brings us together. What is it about that creates such a physical, it's such a powerful bond? It doesn't seem like it's that significant if I'm just moving the same formation as someone next to me. Why is that so important?
Science hasn't quite figured it out, but the idea of what they think is happening is the fact that we are as intellectually lazy or cognitively lazy as we are physically lazy. And so when everyone around us is doing the same thing at the same time, it lets us cognitively coast. Because we are predictive machines. That's what our brains are there for. And so if we don't have to predict what you're doing next because you're doing the same thing I'm doing, that it sort of frees up a lot of cognitive energy and makes us relax. It's something that gets us out of ourselves. They've also shown that when people sync like that and they get in this groove with other people, that it also makes them have a sense of what they call mergence or oneness with the people around them, where you become less self-conscious, you become less aware of yourself, and you feel part of this larger, greater organism. I'm in a line dance class here, and I love it, but it's the same thing. You get into this, everybody's doing the same thing you are. And I mean, I could not be more different than a lot of the people in that class. And we just are so connected, not only physically, but just afterwards. Just that I've so lived a lot of the things that I found out by writing this book, where I think oh, that's why. Because we get at the end of that class, it is just peace and harmony. We love each other to death. And it's, and it's people that you just never would have thought. But because we are doing the same thing at the same time, it really does promote this sense of unity. And there are a lot of reasons for that physiologically, but the effect is the same. It's just joy.
I have a friend who joined a chorus. She's an adult, but it is her favorite thing in the world. I mean, she sings once a week, and she says it's just the most blissful experience. Similar to you, where it's just a group of people she's never known, would maybe never even fraternize with, and she absolutely loves it.
But if you think about it, we've been doing this since prehistory. I mean, the use of synchronistic activities has been the social glue in our cultures and our species for forever. You think of things like religion. Everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's, kneeling, standing, doing all of these rituals, but always synchronistically, always at the same time. Soldiers marching, soldiers chanting, protesters chanting, all of these things that we've done forever to promote cohesion. that we never thought, well, why? But that is exactly what we're doing.
And can synchrony also explain how crowds become dangerous quickly, sort of mob mentality? Because there's negative social contagion too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that is more of sort of that physiological contagion, like fear, that arousal level of where it's catching. And particularly negative emotions are very catching because we're wired to pay more attention and to be put more on alert with that. So things like, where you see, unfortunately, at concerts, music concerts, and also religious gatherings where there are these stampedes and crushes of people because of that panic, where it's just catching and people lose sight of themselves and get swept away in this group emotion. And it can also happen to some degree, though not as intensely, online. And we've all seen things go viral online where it's the emotion, where this outrage just catches on fire.
Yeah, I do want to talk at length actually about the online sort of implications of this. But before I do, because that gets a little darker, technology, AI, as it does, I want to go sort of I want to go a slightly more cheerful direction because you have this whole section about animals and synchronizing with animals. Pets, especially dogs, actually synchronize their bodies to ours. And I'm just fascinated about this. So what does that look like scientifically? Why animals sometimes read us better than humans do? Because they don't speak. They're another species. So how can they read us?
Do you have a dog?
I do. I have 3 dogs and a cat.
You have 3 dogs.
Yeah.
What kind of dogs?
Okay, so I have a chocolate lab. I have a mutt. And then I have this tiny little Pomeranian, which is really more my wife's dog. But that brings me to the question. You say that animals often reflect our emotional states. So I have this very anxious little mutt, and then I have this cheerful, gluttonous dog. I want to know which one is me. Neither of those is a winning answer, but give me one.
Well, which one is more bonded to you?
Probably the gluttonous one. Because I feed her snacks. That's why she's fat.
Well, dogs, horses, a lot of animals are social animals. And so they have the same instincts to sync that we do. And so animals, generally, they really do reflect us. And the thing is it's sort of like with people that, we can all have our own personalities, but we can sync on a lot of different levels. And some levels, maybe we aren't syncing. So like, for example, I have a dog as well. And my dog doesn't like anyone but me. And so, yeah. And it takes him a while to get to know people. And he's very selective about who he's going to be friendly with. He's not like a lab at all. So, are you and I exactly like our dogs? There are probably elements of us and, each of the dogs, but the real syncing comes into play where you're reading each other. The dog is reading your emotions. The dog is following you around. The dog is also, they've done studies that show that the cortisol levels in both humans and their dogs are just like totally sync up. You're stressed out, your dog is stressed out. And your dog can read when you're in a bad mood. They can. And so that's part of them reading you is by syncing to you on all these physiological levels.
As we begin 2026, we're in an unprecedented moment of both opportunity and risk. AI is coming for our jobs, we're told, but meanwhile, it has never been easier to start a new business. Do you have an idea for a business you just can't get out of your head? This is the year to make it happen, and now is the time to start. Here's my recommendation for how to begin the process. That's the hardest part. I've been doing it myself lately. First, record a voice memo on your phone. Just describe your business idea for 5 to 10 minutes like you're talking to a friend. Then copy the text transcription and paste it into your favorite AI's prompt box. You can then ask, how can I improve this idea? What are the next steps I should take to make it happen? You will be amazed by the results. Next step, go to Shopify, where you will find everything you need to build your new business. I am doing this myself right now. I'm starting a new social good clothing line as a side hustle, and I'm doing it using Shopify because it is the best platform for entrepreneurs on the planet. This is a company that really supports entrepreneurs, and I'm a big fan. Millions of entrepreneurs have already made this leap from household names to first-time business owners just getting started. Shopify gives you all the tools to easily build your dream store. Choose from hundreds of beautiful templates that you can customize to match your brand. I've been playing with it. It just takes minutes. Setup is fast with Shopify's built-in AI tools that write product descriptions and headlines and help you edit product photos. Marketing is built in too. You can create email and social campaigns that reach customers wherever they scroll. As you grow, Shopify grows with you. You can handle more orders, expand to new markets, and do it all from the same dashboard. In 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/NBI. Go to shopify.com/NBI. That's shopify.com/NBI. Hear your first this year with Shopify by your side.
I can't resist mentioning that, we are not having this conversation in person. Although maybe it'd be even more fun in person. But we're doing it over the phone. And that brings me to the big topic, of course, of video calls. This is something that's become very normal now. 10 years ago, video calls were fairly uncommon. So we've had 10 years to adjust to them. We've had remote work, et cetera. And yet I still sort of can't stand video calls, and I don't think I'm alone. I find them very draining and very awkward. What is it about video calls and digital communication in general that is so off for us?
Oh, I'm so with you. That I wrote a story a while back for the New York Times just about this, and I included a lot of the stuff I found out in the book because I found it so fascinating, because a lot of my stories have to do with, why do I feel that way? Or why do people do that? And a lot of people have said the same thing you've said, that I can't stand video calls. And I don't know why we continue, because everybody seems to hate them. I don't know anybody who says, oh, goody, Zoom. But the reason why we find it so draining is because we have this instinct to sync. We're looking to mimic one another's, they're called micro expressions on our faces. It's totally subconscious. And you can't really see them. These are totally involuntary little facial expressions that we do. And also the pupil dilation. We are looking for all of these things when we are in a face-to-face interaction that we sync up to, that help us get a read on one another. It is our huge survival skill to do this type of matching. Now, you put us on a video call. Well, let's first talk about camera placement. I'm not looking at you. I am looking at a camera, or I'm looking at an image of you. So we are not making eye contact. So that's a little bit freaky, because you're kind of looking at each other, but not really. And so again, this is all subconscious. Your brain is like, okay, it's trying to sync up, but you're not quite. There's something wrong. And also the way that the technology is constructed, the way it's been programmed, is to actually smooth over to save bandwidth. So there's a lot of kind of attenuating and compressing, and also, just even to ever send it over the internet, you're having to change things a little bit to actually make it so it's transmissible, and then it's put back together. All these little pieces are put to get back together. So it's off. And our brain reads that as really peculiar. And so it's like spinning its wheels trying to do this syncing up with one another. And by the end of the call, it's kind of freaks you out. You have that extra burden of trying to sync and being unable to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's only exacerbated when you have a group Zoom call. At least with two people, you can get to some approximation of a connection. But you've got four people, and Chris is talking, and then Michael interrupts. You're like, should I go? You're like, this is a disaster. Put us in a room together, we're fine. But the four of us, it's just like, let's cut this short.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You bring up a really interesting point about the frictionless economy creating a loneliness epidemic. And if I can try to paraphrase, you're saying that there's this kind of digital alienation because we're ordering from Amazon instead of going to a store. We're having DoorDash delivered instead of going to a restaurant, or even, texting a friend instead of meeting them for coffee in person. And so we're digitizing away these personal interactions. And as a result, we're not having random encounters with strangers, which can be exciting and fun. And we're not really having deep physical moments with our friends.
I think that's so true. And I love that you're bringing that up, because just this morning, I realized another thing that people do. That I was walking my dog, who doesn't like anyone but me, and I walked by this guy, and he had one of these trucks. I mean, of course, I'm talking to somebody in the Northeast. I'm down in Texas, but anyway, and it has this big muffler that comes up in the front of the car. And it's almost like a periscope up in the front. And I couldn't help myself because I'm me and, my journalistic background. I'm like, tell me about that. And it was 6:00 in the morning. It's like, why is the exhaust up in the front? And he explained it. We had a really nice interaction, and it was just, I won't go into the reasons, but it's really interesting. But then I thought, most people now are like, I'll Google that when I get home. We're Googling everything. So we're not even asking, just things like, do you have a pest control person that you really like? You're Googling that. You're not really asking your neighbor necessarily anymore. A lot of the things that you would have had an interaction, you're asking Google or getting on Reddit, which is my favorite place to find things out. But you see, it's the same point that you're making, is that we have diminished our opportunities to interact with one another. Whether it's, Googling an answer or going into a coffee shop and getting coffee instead of everybody ordering ahead at Starbucks. And I just see people walk in, grab their coffee, and then leave.
Yeah, it's true. I had
no interaction.
I had an experience where, because you're right, we can kind of like order things or go to Google or go to Reddit, but our sink was leaking. So Google can't fix that, right? I can't fix our sink. I tried, couldn't fix it. So I had to get a plumber to come in. And suddenly there's an actual real live person in my home, right? I work from home and we're chatting about the sink. He's a nice guy, Roy. And he's telling me, bronze and copper and different, all this stuff, just serendipitous conversation I would never have. I'd probably, scroll past that. And then he sends me to this, instead of going to Home Depot, he's like, oh, there's this great little supply shop. So I drive to the supply shop. I talk to another guy. I talk to Mike about plumbing stuff. So this turns into this whole little side quest in video game language. Now Roy comes back today. We install it. We joke about how it looks like a gooseneck. We have a whole little experience. And I thought, all right, if that had been, normally I would just go on Amazon and just order something and like stick it and then we're done. But I had an entire experience.
Yeah. And that's what we're missing. I mean, that's I think really contributing quite a bit, because we're just have these diminishing opportunities to have those serendipitous, like, who goes to the bank anymore? Who, goes, even going to the library, people aren't actually going to the library. They're downloading books. They're just, it's all of these things where you've closed in your circle and your opportunity to not only have these conversations, but to have, as the point of my book, is to have these synchronistic moments that it's a whole body experience. It wasn't just that you talked to this person. You had a lot going on physiologically, the hormones, everything that is making you a healthier person.
Yeah. And I would say that I could say, oh, well, it was an inefficient use of my time. It took a half hour, it took an hour. But the alternative is a super efficient day in which I have more time just to be alone. So is that a win, really? Great. I freed up an hour to sit by myself and scroll on Reddit.
Well, and also we have to think about what our lives are about. What are the most rewarding experiences? What makes you feel the most alive? And those are those experiences, like, me with the guy talking about his Periscope exhaust on his truck. And it's not that necessarily, though it could, we could turn out to be friends. You never know. That's the thing. And also, there's something that you build upon. I don't know how I'm going to use that or how you're going to use your plumbing knowledge, but...
Knowledge is a strong word.
Well, but you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's not even necessarily about that. It's just about how we coordinate ourselves with other people that makes us richer as individuals and makes our lives richer. And that's really what this is all about. And there's something, to me, intellectually as well as spiritually satisfying about the idea that synchrony connects us not only to one another, but to the universe as a whole, because everything has synchronistic properties. It has been observed in the natural and life sciences, things like from the tiniest little quantum particle to supermassive quasars have synchronistic properties. We see it all through the universe. And so it really shouldn't be surprising that we as human beings do the same thing. And there's something really beautiful about that to me.
Absolutely. I remember first reading about superstring theory in Brian Greene's book, and he talks about this idea that, this is a theory, of course, and I'm sure it's been updated since. I read this 30 years ago, but that at the base, like the basic core of the universe are these sort of little vibrational strings, these vibrational frequencies. And it's interesting, you look cross-mythologically, and so many origin stories are about the universe being sung into existence, or about, singing and voice and vibrations as being this like principle, which leads right into synchrony. This is about as woo-woo as I get, but there we go.
This is about as woo-woo as I get too. I mean, and the thing is this isn't fully understood yet. I mean, it's a fact that we do this. The implications and the degree to which and the extent to which brings us together we're still teasing it out. But there's something incredibly interesting and amazing about the fact that we actually do this.
It is remarkable. Did you find, because the book, I should mention, is really, really heavily researched. It's always fun to read a book by a New York Times journalist, because you go deep. Like, you talk to so many people. And I was amazed because I thought there's so much research going on in this field that I didn't even know existed. Is this a field that's considered a little obscure, or is this become more normal?
Not anymore. I mean, that's why the subtitle is The Emerging Science, because it's huge now. I mean, it is huge, and so many people are paying attention to it. Particularly now, a lot of the social media companies and a lot of the technology companies have hit on it, because they feel like if they can figure out how to make people sync with their products and to have sort of this artificial sync with your AI chatbot, your AI friend, your AI therapist, that they will be able to, of course, make more money, keep you on their platform, keep you totally locked in. So there's a huge amount of money being poured into this line of research right now. But yeah, it's a whole, they call it social neuroscience. And this is something that is just huge now.
Yeah, you mentioned how all these researchers and these PhDs who would normally have gone into sort of academic research are now just being sort of scooped up by Google and by ChatGPT and all these other companies to build this out, Meta, et cetera. It actually made me think, because I use ChatGPT now and then, and I'll ask it questions. Just the other day, I was asking some real estate questions. I was asking some investing questions, and you can talk to it, which also increases a sense of, interaction, social interaction. So it started to feel like a friend, almost a companion, and not to get too sci-fi-ish, but I can't help but worry about a future where there are these physical versions of these AIs that eventually replace our human friends. But in the book itself, you have a saying which gave me some hope. You said that on a fundamental level, we are disgusted by inauthenticity, which kind of explains the uncanny valley. Can sense when something is not actually human, and we retreat from it.
I love the example of the Pixar movie with the little baby, the Tin Toy movie.
Oh yeah, wait, tell everyone about that. That's a great moment. Yeah.
Oh my God. Because and of course, I have to go look at it, and I turn it on. I'm like, oh, it freaks you out. It's
right. It was way back in 1988 or something, a very, very early version of a Pixar baby. And it's so repellent that people are disgusted. Truly, I've read some of the comments. People are horrified. Set it on fire, kick it down an elevator shaft. Responses to this freaky baby. Yes.
But I feel that way in a lot of the animated stuff now, where it's the ones that are getting closer and closer. I mean, Disney and Pixar are really smart, because they really learn their lesson from that. Okay, let's do cars, let's do animals, because we're okay with things that are so clearly not human. But when they start to try to approximate humans, that's when we get kind of that ick factor. That's where the uncanny valley comes in. So it does give me hope that we are hardwired to resist that kind of thing, because as I say in the book, as much as you may come to love your devices and your technology, it's never going to love you back. And you're never going to sync up to the degree and again, back to, it's a multi-sensory experience when you do click and sync with someone, and you're never going to get that, because science has not figured it out. And also, I'm not even sure they can. I think there are too many levels at which we sync that we're not aware of, that, there is still a magic to it.
You mentioned something also about tech companies using synchrony research to influence user behavior. But one of the things I thought was fascinating was this, I think you called it the synchronization theory of flow. So most people are pretty familiar with the idea of flow. You're in that state, it's kind of in the zone, right? And now these devices or these programs are hijacking the sensation of flow. So we get that feeling of being in the zone, but then it turns out we're not actually doing anything worthwhile.
Exactly. That's why they're passing all these laws to protect your neural data, because what they're essentially doing is they're tracking various neural data, whether it's brainwaves or pupil dilation. There are lots of different ways they're trying to read, using biometrics, trying to read when you're in a flow state. And so now there's a lot of legislation now to try and protect your neural data so they don't manipulate you into a flow state. So you can't tear yourself away from the video game or the social network platform or what have you. So, at least some lawmakers are trying to keep an eye out. But I think it's really incumbent on all of us to realize with our technology, we're being played. Mm-hmm. We're being played. And so to have some agency and really think about your mental and spiritual health, to really try and view it that way, that this is a manipulative thing I'm using and I need to be careful.
Right. It's just in such a different package that we're not ready for it. Normally when things are bad for us, it's a consumable thing, right? It's a food or it's a cigarette or a drug. And we know okay, well, take those things away from me, please, because I know I'm helpless against them. But when it's an experience, a virtual experience, it's almost like it's too non-physical for us to really comprehend it because we are just little creatures,
Yeah, we're animals.
We're animals.
And people forget that. And we have this hubris that, I can manage this. It's not me. It's the stupid people, who are gonna, fall prey to this. And quite frankly, that's sort of a lot of the thought about synchrony, where people think like, oh, no, that's people who are uneducated. That's not me. I won't be influenced by people. And we all are. We can't help it. It's because we're animals. We cannot help it. And even myself, I feel like awareness is key to breaking free of synchronies that are not working for you, either on or offline. But, just because I understand it doesn't necessarily mean, I still don't fall prey or find myself where I, walk out of a party where I feel like, oh my gosh, that person really took me in, and I totally got on that agitation that I wished I hadn't, to just kind of let you have your feelings and I'm going to keep mine.
So let's get back to human relationships then. Enough of our future robot overlords. For listeners, say they want to rebuild healthy synchrony in their lives. They feel too disconnected. Family, their friends, or workplaces. Can you suggest a habit or a behavior that we could start today?
Well, we've sort of talked about the technology. Is just be really aware to the degree to which technology is taking you away from being present and being able to sync with other people, because to be able to develop those synchronies, you have to be looking at people. You have to be in their physical presence. As I said, it's multisensory. So you have to be face-to-face. You have to be available to all those varied vibes, ones we know about and ones we don't know about, to be able to sync up. There's that. I also think it's really instructive to really think about your feelings. And a lot of people don't really take a gut check or really think about where their feelings are coming from, much less if they might be coming from somebody else. So, for example, just think about your feelings and think about, am I feeling anxious and upset because of something happening to me directly? Or am I feeling anxious and upset because of something someone else is doing or saying on or offline? And also think about people. Do I do things or say things around this person that I don't ordinarily? For example, do I drink more when I'm with this person? Do I tend to feel depressed? Do I tend to feel more political outrage around this person? And just kind of have an idea of how you might be syncing to them.
That's great. My friend Dimitri we've been friends a long time. We actually just sort of immediately hit it off. It was one of those friendships.
Yeah.
And he has a very simple kind of rule of thumb because he said, there's kind of 3 responses I have. Like I spend time with a person, I leave, I feel better, I feel about the same, or I feel worse. And I just slowly cut out the people who make me feel worse because it's very simple as he's gotten older, and that's really just helped him. I always thought that was good advice. I mean, you can't always do it, but to the best that you can.
Well, and also to realize, okay, a lot of people don't have a great emotional vocabulary, but all of us can relate to someone that's easy to be around versus hard to be around. And that's what Dimitri's talking about. Do I feel worse? Was that emotional labor? Was that a burden being with that person? So I think to be really aware of that. And like you say, sometimes you can't cut people out entirely, say it's your boss or, something like that. But just to be aware of how you might be syncing to that person and also put into effect like, okay, how do I break the rhythm of this encounter so I can hold on to myself? I mean, really to have that mantra in your head of, okay, I'm going to let you have your feelings. I'm not going to rise to that. I'm not going to rise to your agitation, your anger, whatever. I'm not going to join you. I'm going to observe. I'm not going to sink to that.
Yeah. And to your earlier point about compatibility and, people meeting online and then meeting, it's not even necessarily a judgment or a moral thing like, oh, I'm this or she's that or he's that. It's just connection. So, I mean, there are plenty of people in the world where I'm the bummer, where they're like, oh God, I got to talk to this guy's going to, and they just go the other way. I mean, it's just the way it is. Like, you can't be everything for everyone. So I guess taking away that sort of stigma of, oh, that means I'm the bad person or he's the bad person. This just isn't working.
Yeah, no, and it is. It's that special alchemy that 2 people create together. And I like that because I hope people walk away from the book realizing that you're not going to sync with everyone, and that's okay. And you're not meant to, actually. I mean, think of what a burden it would be if you clicked with everyone. And also, what would make your relationship with Dimitri special? How would that be special to you if you clicked with everyone? There's that, but I do think that people have 2 reactions generally when they feel disconnected after they're with someone, or they didn't like how they felt. It's either what's wrong with that person? That person it's on them, or what's wrong with me that we didn't connect? And a lot of time it's just no harm, no foul. You just didn't click. There's no use forcing the issue. And that's not to say you may not click tomorrow, or the day after that, or a couple of weeks where you're all in different places and you have a different vibe at that point, for lack of a better word. I don't want to get too woo-woo, but you know what I mean.
I do. That's an interesting point that timing plays a big part too.
Right. I mean, all of our interactions, our history, everything that makes us up is perceivable, albeit subconsciously, by our every twitch and neural vibration. It's all part of our package. So as time goes on, we may be playing a different tune. I mean, to use that musical analogy again. And somebody might be more likely to sync up. But, again, if you don't, no harm, no foul. There are so many people that you would never expect you will sync with. So just keep moving on.
That's great advice. I do feel like most of my greatest friends I would not have predicted became my greatest friends.
It's that special alchemy between the 2 of you.
So maybe I should call that plumber and get some coffee.
Actually, I think that's a good point. When you do click with somebody, pursue that. Those are the relationships that are the most rewarding. And there's a reason why you clicked. You may not know yet what it is. But when you feel that sense of comfort and ease with another person, ask that person out to lunch. Just to really pay attention to when that happens.
Invite them line dancing. That seems
Absolutely.
That always works. Thank you, Kate. This has been really fun. Thanks for sitting down with me virtually. Your book really did change how I think about everyday interactions. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to try to sync better with the people in my life, try to quietly desync from the ones that make me tired and drained, and we'll see how it goes.
Good luck.
Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Rufus, what'd you think of this one?
I was so psyched to see that Kate Murphy wrote this book because Charles Duhigg wrote a section of his book, Super Communicators, addressing this interpersonal synchrony. And I always thought, this is extraordinary. Our brains have this automatic transmission for syncing with other people. And then Kate Murphy dedicates a whole book to it. And I think it's a riveting topic.
Yeah, I think we've sort of danced around this with a bunch of other guests. I mean, this overlaps with some of what you talked about with David Brooks. It reminded me a little bit of one of our favorite episodes from way back in the day, your conversation with John Colapinto about his book, This is the Voice. He talks a lot about how sort of language emerged from humans singing to each other, and that was sort of how we were coordinating in our hunter-gatherer days. And so, yeah, I felt like she really took a thread that's been running through episodes for years now and cracked it kind of wide open.
Absolutely. And one of my takeaways is, wow, this is a great reason when you understand the way that our brains function as this kind of automatic transmission for syncing with other people, and this just happens naturally when we're face-to-face. It's a reminder to me that I need to get out and interact directly with people more often opposed to through computer screens.
I loved her riff about how, there's basically all this high fidelity data that we just can't replicate digitally, that Zoom can never do justice to, the pupil dilation and we're on Zoom right now. You can't see me from the nipples down, so you can't see my gestures and my movements. And
I really feel deprived of that peer review.
And what I think was really powerful about this conversation is that it's both a celebration of syncing and why that is such an beautiful and tremendous human asset, and also a warning of how it is at risk in this age where increasingly our engagement is digitally mediated and where we avoid face-to-face interaction. As she says, we don't go out to eat, we get DoorDash. We don't go chat with the barista, we pre-order our Starbucks. And we really lose something powerful when we avoid those kinds of face-to-face interactions, even if they're with people we don't know, even if they're just kind of micro engagements with strangers.
And not just individual connections, but collective ones, right? In churches and summer camps, everybody's singing together, moving together. We've lost a bunch of this kind of collective synchronization. And this seems like something we need to correct for. Meanwhile, I think that understanding this instinct to synchronize also gives us an opportunity to choose not to sync. As Kate put it, I'm going to let you have your feelings. I'm not going to sync to that. That's something I take away from this, is that I need to consciously choose not to synchronize with folks who are going into a sort of depressive or anxious or negative thought patterns, because in the absence of making a choice there, we will follow people in that direction.
Yeah, we're so influenced by other people, and there's a risk with that. I mean, not even just following them into a depressive state, as you say, but allowing their enthusiasm or concern about something to influence our own feelings and maybe overwrite our own feelings, right? That if you're having a debate or discussion with someone and you have this natural tendency to start mirroring their attitudes, I think that can cause you to lose sight of how you might actually feel about whatever it is you're debating or discussing. And I think that there's a risk to that too. We don't just want to become people pleasers.
That's right. Groupthink is a problem, and so this is both a superpower and it's something for us to be mindful about.
So again, the book is Why We Click by Kate Murphy. It's available for pre-order now. There's a link in the episode notes. And thanks to our colleague Panio Giannopoulos for just a terrific conversation. Today's show was produced by me, Caleb Bissinger, and sound designed by Mike Toda.
I'm Rufus Griscom. See you next week.